Welcome to Teams Transformed, the podcast for people who want to see real team transformation.
For courageous coaches, curious leaders, and anyone passionate about unlocking the true power of teams.
We're your hosts, Georgina
and Allard.
Here to journey with you through transformational insights on how to coach teams with presence, depth, and emergence.
Let's explore not just the tools, but the art of transforming teams. Hello, everyone. In today's episode, we sit down with Zoe Egerickx. Zoe is an accredited professional executive coach, team coach, and facilitator. In the episode, she tells two beautiful stories of moments of emergence where the unexpected arose in the team coaching session. And we talk about the importance and the magic of surrendering to those moments and going with the flow. Enjoy the episode, everyone.
Hey, welcome, Zoe.
Hello. Thanks for inviting me to be here. It's great to see you again.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, we're really looking forward to our conversation with you.
So when was the last time we actually saw each other? Was it in London? Was it from one of those workshops? I forgot now.
I think in person it would have been at the retreat.
Or was it? It was at the the retreat last summer.
Yeah. That was great.
It was amazing, wasn't it?
It was.
And of course online since then.
Yes.
And online, yeah. Oh, and Zoe, I'm sure the listeners are curious about you. Perhaps you could say a little bit about, what environment do you work in where you provide some team coaching?
So I work with purpose-driven leaders and teams, I would say. So most of my work is in the health and social care sector. And I also work with charitable organisations too. That's where I spend most of my time. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yes, it's always helpful to know because I think the different contexts we work in certainly shape the work and have a big impact on how we can engage with an organisation and what their needs are. So yeah, that's great.
And in all the years of coaching, Zoe, that you've been doing, did you start? Was the emphasis more on one-on-one coaching to begin with, and then you slowly started doing more and more work with teams and groups, or has it always been teams and groups?
I trained as the one-to-one coach initially, a long time ago, whilst working full-time. But when I set up my own business, I found myself being invited to work more with teams, but I think that was more in the facilitation space because people had experienced me in that way before. So I was quite lucky, I think, to start working with large groups and teams and to get comfortable in that space. I felt more comfortable there than one-to-one coaching, actually, unlike some of my peers and colleagues who I've spoken to. So mostly with teams, groups, large groups of people. That's where I started. And now I do both. I do a mix of one-to-one coaching with leaders, people who lead teams, but most of my work is team coaching, which I love.
Oh, that's so good to hear. Yeah, some people definitely prefer one-to-one, some people prefer team. We're here in this podcast series. We're really interested in moments of emergence, and that's what we'd love to talk about because it's something that isn't talked about or written about much. What moment when something unexpected happened, something shifted, something that sticks out in your mind as a meaningful moment. I wonder if there's a moment you could share with us, Zoe.
Yes, of course. So, of course, I've been thinking about this, knowing that the topic is emergence in team coaching. And it's something I feel quite well practiced in talking about because it's the way that I work. It's my style, if you like. And there are a few examples that I might share to illustrate this, to bring emergent team coaching to life in moments that I've witnessed or experienced with the teams that I work with. And I suppose to start by saying what's common to them all is that the emergence occurred right at the beginning of the team coaching session when we were checking in. So, I have, as most team coaches do, that more facilitative approach to set off the experience, for people to arrive in the room, to land, to disconnect from the busyness that they've often experienced, to come into the session, make contact with themselves, with each other, so to be fully present. So we do that with a check-in. That's our ritual. That's our familiar structure, if you like. And when first working with teams, I'll present the question. So I'll design something that feels right for the team, and how well they know each other, how well they know me. And then as we go on, I might sometimes use a card deck, some prompts that are pre-written, just because it's a different experience. It's add something different to the experience for the team. And then as they mature and we've worked together for longer, I'll invite the team to create the check-in question, with the intention of them having the skills, developing the skills in order to do that themselves when I'm not there, So the examples relate to those different scenarios. And the first one, I'd been working with the team for about a year, I think. And so we'd established a good relationship. We had built trust. When I first started with them, they were at the beginning of their relationship. They were newly formed. It'd all been quite polite, we'd had really good, honest conversations, I think, in our team coaching sessions, but we were at the beginning phase. And then what emerged is, I think it was the second question in, I'd done the how are you arriving, and then asked, how's your workload at the moment? This came up last time. So this had been what we call figural. This had been, had popped up occasionally before. We'd not spent much time on it, but it was a genuine curiosity, because I knew it was a distraction. How's the workload for you at the moment? Well, and that was the moment. This was an executive team, and they were used to being busy. But for one person, the newest member of the team, they started to share that their workload was unsustainable. And I don't know really what happened in the room. We could have moved on. We could have just said, oh, okay, thanks for sharing, let's move on. But we didn't. There was something there, an opportunity, a need I felt that was worth exploring further. And especially because I knew that the experience was different for the three people in the room. So one person said, yeah, no, busy, but okay. Another one, yeah, all's great. And another one, working all evenings, weekends, this is unsustainable. Anyway, so we explored it further. And I invited the team to give a bit of a scale, because we didn't really get a sense of the difference. So we used a scale to give some sort of metric around the workload and their experience of that. And I stepped back, really. I got out of the way for the conversation to unfold between them, where they were asking questions. But is this normal for you? Is this what it was like in your previous role and place of work? What can we do to support you? What needs to change? What needs to happen? So they really took on the role of asking the questions, of deepening their awareness, their understanding, their learning. And I could really see that the person who shared this was feeling some discomfort.
Yeah.
So this probably wasn't what she would have chosen to have brought to the room. I'd actually planned it. None of us did. But it was there. And that's what we worked with.
Yes. So it speaks so beautifully to the limits of what we can do with a facilitative stance, right? Because we started up. So like, if I heard you correctly, you start off the session with a bit of a facilitative stance to offer that minimum viable structure to make people feel at ease, and to give it a bit of a, to stick with maybe some form of ritual that you've established in these sessions. but no matter how much you try to set it up in a certain way, something unexpected happens. It always does, sooner or later. In this case, it happened very, very early on. And then you can, I think the choice point that you describe, if I heard you correctly, is we can either skip over that and go, well, you have a lot of work. Yeah, absolutely, you will. But there was something there that made you that made it you used the word figural, that made it figural for you, figural enough to say, whoa, there's a bit of work to be done around this, possibly right now, right here. And so how it's wonderful to hear how easily you then shift from that facilitative stance to that 100% emergent stance, and that openness of work, that the openness to working with what arises in the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get to my third question. A few years back, that would have really bothered me. Hang on, number 3 for the check-in. Let's complete this before we do the content. So we didn't get to that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So surrendering the pre-planned and privileging the moment that's wanting to emerge. And I'm curious, Zoe, it sounded like you sensed something, kind of something in the air that informed that choice point to say, let's stay with this, let's explore this. If you take your mind back to the moment, do you have any words that describe?
I do remember this was we'd introduced an unusual situation for the team, because they will often come and bring their notepads and write everything down. And I'd noticed this again a few times previously. And I remember asking them at the beginning of this team coaching session, let's play with something. Let's try something out, because I noticed that you're all very busy writing, and that puts your focus on your page. And I wonder what it would be like if you were just to discard that. Let's try for the check-in, see how it goes, so that you're not writing anything down. Close your notebooks, put them aside, and let's see what impact that has on how you, how you relate to each other, how, what I was meaning was their availability to be in contact with each other.
Yeah.
So we did that. They agreed to it, first of all. I suppose it was a bit of an active experiment. They agreed to it. And what that meant was that we had to recontract. So if you're not able to do that, what will you need in order to get what you need from the session today to feel comfortable? And I remember them saying, we might need to slow down. We might need to pause. We may need, this is how I reflect. This is how I process. And so I'll have to do that in a different way. So I'd like to ask for permission to be slower, and that felt really important. We're always contracting, but in that moment, in order to accommodate that change, and I think that probably helped what emerged to emerge. So your question was, what did it feel like? It felt slower. It felt less transactional. It felt more organic, natural, free, and tentative. There was a bit of, I don't know how even to describe that. It was a felt sense. And they built on each other. I feel this is my experience. This is what it's like for me. So they were really working. They were in dialogue with each other. They were really connected.
Yeah.
In that moment, it seemed to matter to them all, actually, that topic. Whereas before it had been dismissed.
Yeah.
We're senior, so we manage our workload.
Yeah, I'm sitting here listening, and I find myself really enjoying the conversation, and I'm trying to tie two things together, Zoe, like the last words that you were speaking, and then something that that Georgina, that you said at the beginning of your of the last question you asked, which had the word surrender in it. And I'm really intrigued by this word surrender, like as in surrendering to what's happening, right? Surrendering to the moment. And I think the word surrender gets a bad rap sometimes because we equate it with like giving up or something, right? Oh, I just surrender. Oh, I'll just give up. But where giving up sounds very disempowering, I give up, in my struggle against reality. I give up. Very disempowering. The word surrender to me sounds very resourceful. I'm not going to fight with what's happening. I'm not going to go to that place in my head of, oh God, I wish this hadn't happened. I wish this were different. No, I'm going to surrender to it in a trusting kind of way. And that sounds so simple to do, but I think that's at the heart of this this emergent practice. And one thing is to do it in one-on-one work. But it's another thing to be able to surrender to what's arising in the moment when you work with a team of people, and especially a senior executive team that can be quite intimidating for some people, myself included.
I mean, I think so. Yeah, surrendering can be, oh, you just get on with it then. You're not doing what I want. You just carry on. That could be one version.
Yeah.
But actually, in the version that I think that we're talking about is stepping back, holding whatever needs to happen and what is happening in the moment. And I'm really aware that what made this possible for me was the trust that I had built. You talk about trust and psychological safety between team members, between coach and team. But what really enabled this to happen for me was my relationship with the chief exec who'd commissioned me. Yeah. We have an agreement, and we talk about this. It's a very overt agreement that we think today's session will be around strategy. Oh, look where we find ourselves. We hang out here. And so I have permission, and that's developed over years of working with some members of the team, to say, this feels right. Shall we pause here? Shall we stay on this topic in this space for now? There's no way I would have felt as comfortable doing this in 5 years ago. Yeah, working with the same individual for whom I felt I really needed that permission. Yeah. So important, those relationships. There's so many different dynamics at play. And we're part of that, aren't we?
I'm hearing just how much container building you've done.
Yeah.
And how that container building of language, of holding space, as you described it, you talked about surrender, but also about holding. It's an active thing that's really important. We're saying, let's stay with this, let's attend to this, let's choose this moment above all other moments. Everything else that everyone's checked in on, let's choose this moment. So there's a very active holding, and the container building is so important to that. And you might not have done that in the very first session with this team right back when you began working with them. Yeah, so there's a lot of nuances. And Zoe, I'm wondering, what was the impact of that choice? Where did it go, this choice to stay with this, what sounded quite uncomfortable for the person who shared moment, to sit in the heat?
And I think that for the person who shared that unsustainable workload, she wasn't asking for anything from her colleagues. She took ownership of that. what, as a team, it allowed them to do was to take a step back and to think, well, who else might be feeling this? Who else in the organisation is experiencing this level of commitment? Who is seeing us working this hard and thinks that's the way it should be? That's how we work here. This is what's expected of us. What needs to shift in how we role model, in how we use this really for the good of the organisation and the purpose of the organisation. It revealed to them that they needed to focus more clearly on their purpose, on their roles. What are they doing that might better be done by somebody else or not at all? So it really opened up this opportunity for them to look at themselves more. And it gave them a different motivation. Not just because this is what we do, this is how we become a high-performing team, but, this actually is what's going to enable us to improve or change the situation that's just been brought forward, brought to the surface, unveiled, as we say. So it had real meaning and purpose. It really mattered to the team. And that's what they've gone on to do and are continuing to do. So that was the impact.
Thank you. I'm hearing that the choice you made actually deepened the conversation. I think that's often our aim in slowing it down. And when we deepen, often find the work goes more to the thought around who am I being or who are we being? What needs to shift at that level? And in that way, it's this development is more vertical. It's more about how we're being as a team, what's our learning edge, our own growth, rather than what do we need to do. They didn't come out with it with a conclusion about diary management or that sort of thing. It's a deeper inquiry. And that takes space, I think, especially when people are so very busy. They're running around from meeting to meeting to meeting. They don't have the space to really process what they're holding and what they're dealing with. So, yeah, I liked what you said about slowing down.
Yeah, and I also liked what you said about you feeling comfortable enough, to make the choices that you make with this team. And we underlined things like, well, you underlined, Zoe, the relationship. And then, Georgina, you added that beautiful word, container building, to that. And what was also on my mind is that notion of contracting. If indeed we contract with the people that we work with, if we contract for permission to deviate from whatever topic we had agreed on before starting the session, it can only add to the comfort that we feel when we feel that we have to deviate from the topic, right? And stay with what is arising in the moment. So, yeah, I think I was just reminding myself of the importance of contracting, which always comes back for me in terms of you can never contract enough with the team. And sometimes it's as simple as saying, can we contract for permission to stay with what we think is most relevant and most important in the moment, rather than, even though we had said we were going to talk about strategy today, as was mentioned.
And so you've referred to a few times today to, 5 years ago, I wouldn't have done that. And that's made me want to ask, for the listener, what would you say is the learning journey you've been on? And in that, the listener might go, there's some reflection of me there, some learning that I could go on.
So I think there's a great pull from those that we work with who commission us to do something, to have an impact that is measurable, so that there's a return on investment, of course, and there must be that. So that's the pull, that's the tangible stuff. And I know when I get pulled into that by creating an agenda, by working quite superficially, I feel, the results aren't as good. The impact, the long-term impact and transformation is not as good. So I think my years of experience has allowed me to see that.
Yeah.
Team coaching isn't a one-off intervention. You don't meet with a team once and do team coaching and not see them again. Typically, if it's working and if there's that investment. So it's normally a longer term relationship. So you get to see the benefits, the growth, the transformation in the team, mostly, not always, mostly. And so I know from experience, and therefore it's doing the right thing, to work in this different way. We're there in service to the team. We're there to make a difference. We're there to create a shift which is below the surface. And that's quite difficult to describe and explain, isn't it? And to contract around. But that's what's needed. I know that's what works.
Yeah.
I have, courage in my conviction there. I've seen it work.
Yeah, so the experience.
Little or undermine, what can be done in more facilitative, structured settings. There's real value in those too. It's just different.
Yeah. Yes, I recently got invited to put myself forward to coach a senior exec team. And the brief was very typical brief, that they've set aside a day in, 4 or 6 weeks' time, something like that. They've got a day. Can you make that date? And can you do a team effectiveness? This is team coaching for team effectiveness. It's one day. And what model would you use? And for me, I think, well, it's a good way to get started. But unless there's a commitment to a deeper journey over time, it's very unrealistic to expect the team to be able to get enough depth and contact to really shift anything. They may learn about a model or a framework cognitively, but at the dynamics level, at the emotional level, at the who are we being together level. So I used to think, well, that puts unrealistic expectations on me as a coach to kind of deliver within a day. But actually my mind shifted to it's unrealistic and unhelpful to the team because they're expecting to be more effective as a team as a result of something. And none of us are more effective as a result of ingesting cognitively a model. It's, it just needs to go a lot further than that. I'm not sure there's a great deal of awareness around that in organisations at the people and those who are procuring team coaching around what it really takes and bring a bit of humanity into it. So the deeper the work, the deeper the transformation, the more space we need. So that's one thing we've learned from you today. The more contracting over time, the more container building, and all of that enables you to grab hold of these moments as opportunities and really deepen and work into them. And this was a simple example, really. It's not one where there's a massive amount of conflict between members or tension like that, but it could equally be the same. It could be some moment of tension. Yeah, I think it's a very valuable what you've brought here for us today as an example.
There was a time. Let me talk about a team that I worked with who were further along their coaching journey and their team maturation, and so at this point they designed a check-in question. I love doing that. It's very telling. It's telling because of the questions they ask and how they ask them and how people respond. Of course, there's so much data in that. And I don't even remember what the question was, but I remember the response being one member of the team who I would say hadn't yet made the same quality of contact with her colleagues. And she revealed her experience of discrimination not within the team and her colleagues, but in the system and personally. Oh, gosh, I can feel it still here, actually. It had a really big impact on me. And where I went with that, so you can see, imagine this playing out. The question is asked, and this is the response. And I'm in that sort of mode 2, 3, getting out of the way place. But I again, I had a decision point here. I was reacting because what was going on for me was, this is big. This feels really big, really important, and risky and vulnerable. So internally, I was thinking, I don't know what language to use here. I have no experience of this. I'm a different, I have a different background. I'm of a different race. There's so much difference. What if I get it wrong? What if I say something that causes harm? So all of this was going on very rapidly internally for me. And I suspect possibly for others in the room. It would be unusual, unlikely if it wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so I made a decision again to step in and to recontract at the risk of interrupting flow. To say, I'm feeling this. I'm feeling a little bit scared that I might use the wrong words, that I might cause offence, that I may contribute in some way that's not supportive of the conversation. And so can we recontract? Because what I need is permission to get this a bit wrong or to be clunky or messy, And we others joined in and contributed and asked for what they needed, and we had permission. We said, this is a space where we can speak freely, and let's not get stuck with getting it right and being perfect, but just know that we respect each other. We're here to learn and grow. And so the conversation unfolded, but I didn't see that coming. Mm-hmm. I did not see that coming in that moment. It was an invitation from another colleague that allowed that person to go there. So again, it furthered my learning to get out the way, to trust the team, to know where to go, what's important, what matters to them, when is the right time. It was that was big. That was big and had the potential for conflict, not in an aggressive way, but difference. It was a real expression of difference.
Yeah, another beautiful example of surrendering to the moment, Zoe, and a brilliant illustration of use of self. You felt something, you could have skimmed over it and said and pretend, well, I'm not really feeling this, or this is not relevant. But the person who brought it up was voicing something that was existing in the system, and you decided to work with it, and as a result, enrich the type of conversations that the team is able to have, contributing to their effectiveness and to that deeper under the surface kind of learning. I think it's a wonderful example. We could devote a whole other episode to just this example, couldn't we?
Yeah, we sure can.
I mean, I will say it really changed things for the team, just to finish that story. Their contact, their quality of contact, how they related to each other after that time. I mean, it just went from here to here. It was so significant, the impact of that moment of emergence. It will stay with me forever. And with them, I think, the way that they talk about that, their experience of that moment, the appreciation for that moment, for being heard for the first time, for bringing something into awareness that just wasn't known. It was invisible to some members of the team. And the emotions, the impact of that on them. There was a lot to process there. So we spent time with it.
And the bit that I would like to highlight is, as Al said, your use of self, how the way you met what the team member said, and the way you role modeled your own vulnerability with not knowing how to proceed or how to get it right, how to word something right. That tentative quality and, gosh, I could make it worse. I might say something wrong here. That you brought in your own vulnerability and your own discomfort, I think adds a huge amount to the container building. And often, because newer coaches, there's often more of a desire to keep a sort of poker face and not reveal. We're the ones who have developed ourselves, so we're beyond discomfort, and we're the ones who are expert or in the know. And that can be very distancing and not using ourselves as much as a tool in support of the work as we can do. So I think that was very, very helpful to hear that in your story. Thank you so much, Zoe.
Yeah. Thank you, Zoe, for the two stories that you brought today that really highlight the unforeseeable yet exciting nature of this work and the enriching nature of this work for the people that we do the work with. So,
yeah, thank you, Zoe. We look forward to the next time and more stories. But for now, we need to close off for today, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.
You too. Thank you.
thanks for joining today's journey of Teams Transformed.
If this sparked a new insight or a deeper question, we invite you to sit with it, not to solve it, but to let it unfold.
For resources, community and reflection prompts, visit teamcoachingstudio.com.
Until the next time, stay present, stay curious, and keep leaning into the art of emergence.